morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is J.R. Moore coming to you live from deep in the mountains of the Missouri Ozarks on Monday, the 16th day of September, year of our Lord 2019. Welcome to the John Moore Show. We begin our shows with something very important. That would be the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Prepper tip of the day. I haven't done this for a while, but I do this somewhat frequently. I want to encourage people to get a copy of the book and read it and take to heart the protocols put forth there. The title of the book is The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Dr. Joseph Murphy. I say again, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Dr. Joseph Murphy. There are several dozens of books with a similar genre, similar theme on one hand, on the other. Very few of them give specific, detailed instructions on how to accomplish goals, as Dr. Murphy does in this book. We have patient waiting agreement with my friend Sam Andrews. Sam is the proprietor of Freedom Center USA, a world-class tactical training center down there in beautiful Lebanon, Missouri. The Facebook page is Freedom Center USA. The telephone number is 417-718-2597. Good morning, Sam.
Top of the morning to you, John. How are you, sir?
Well, looking forward to another really hot day, mid-90s, high humidity, and hopefully by Thursday we'll see the end of it for this year. How about yourself, sir?
Well, we've had the coldest, wettest summer in history, at least any summer that I can remember in 60 years in Missouri. So I'm really glad to have a few warm days at the end of the fall season to sort of get some things done outside and not have mud to work in.
Well, the rain and the mud has been an issue. I don't know if there's any. A man involved in the construction business, he said the most rain since 1938. So not many people alive now who were adults in 1938. There's a few. Well, Sam, we're all anxiously waiting for the firearms tip of the week, sir.
Okay, the firearms tip of the week has to do with personal defense, has to do with a preparation technique that all trained operators use. We call it a press check. And this is used with semi-auto weapon systems or full auto weapon systems before you get into a conflict. So let's start with a handgun, for example. The proper way to do a press check, and this would be before you holster your weapon or before you walk into a conflict, is that you cycle the slide on your handgun, which normally loads a round into the chamber. But it doesn't do it 100% of the time. Occasionally there's a problem with the magazine, or there's a problem with you seating the magazine properly, or there's a problem with the way the bullet is sitting in the magazine, and the round doesn't feed. And so what we teach people to do is something called a press check. We teach them to grab the slide properly, never sweep your hand with the muzzle, and pull the slide back just about a half an inch. Not enough to eject the round, but enough to verify that the round is, in fact, in the chamber. And this is something you learn to do in the dark, and you feel for the round with your pinky. It's something that you learn to do quietly if you're in an ambush situation, but learning the various techniques to properly do a press check is absolutely critical. And I can tell you this, I had a St. Louis County police officer come to the scene of my sister's house about 10 years ago. And her house had been robbed, and he was there and waiting on the crime unit to get there and dust for fingerprints. And I asked him if he was taught to do a press check in the academy. And he said to me, well, what's that? And I explained what a press check was to him. He says, well, we don't worry about that because a round always goes in the chamber of my pistol when I cycle it. And I said, really? I said, every time? He says, yep, every time. I said, I dare you to check it to see if a round's in there. And he pulled his pistol out of his holster, and he pulled the slide back, and when I saw the look on his face, he looked like he's seen a ghost because his chamber was empty.
You may have just saved that man's life by doing that.
You never know. I mean, if the guy was ever got in a gunfight and he assumed a round was in the chamber, all he would have heard was a whole lot of click and no bang.
Well, like I say, you may have saved that officer's life by giving him that little bit of instruction, and I thank you for doing so. What I tell people, Sam, is when it comes to firearms training and hand-to-hand combat in the police academy, both are very, very minimal. Typically, hand-to-hand combat is between 17 and 20 hours, unarmed combat, and use of a handgun is quite minimal, is my knowledge of what goes on in these police academies. How about you, sir?
Well, I've never attended a police academy, but I've trained thousands of policemen in my career, and I can tell you this, that the majority of policemen that I've trained have been SWAT team members. And they're the top 3% of police officers from an aggression, from an intelligence, from a motivation, from a firearms skills standpoint. Generally, the SWAT officers are in the upper echelon of police from a firearm skill and just a situational awareness. They're just more alert than the average police officer. That's why they're on SWAT. They're more aggressive. That's why they wanted to be on SWAT. And when you see what a new SWAT officer, where he is in his firearm skills, you wonder if they did more than an hour at the academy working with firearms. I mean, it's and here's the thing. Even if they did get good training in the academy, the budgets are so poor right now that they don't give them ammo to train with on a regular basis anymore. It used to be that a police officer had to qualify at least 4 times a year with his sidearm. And now you'd be lucky if they did it once a year.
I got a quick follow-up on that before we get to our next caller. St. Louis City Police used to, past tense, have an outdoor range down near the Mississippi River. The backstop looked like what you would see at a drive-in movie show, a massive, large backstop, and had been in use for many, many decades. There was a hospital right down the street from there, about half a mile, 3/4 mile away, and they started taking gunfire. And somebody put 2 and 2 together and figured out it was coming from the police pistol range, half a mile away. These officers were shooting all the way over this backstop and hitting the hospital half a mile away with their firearms. I think largely as a consequence because of reduced standards for hiring and reduced training. And they had to shut down that police pistol range, sir.
Well, that's really disappointing. I've been to that range many times working with St. Louis City SWAT, and we never had any issues. I wonder if someone was hitting a piece of steel and skipping bullets out or hitting the edge of a target. That's really sad. And you know what I would take away from the situation is that society as a whole, we need to be willing to fund the quality police departments that we want. You can't say we want a high level of policing and then not be willing to give them the ammunition to train with and give them the time and the money it takes to produce and to maintain skills for our officers.
I agree. Let's get to our caller here. We've got Mark in Texas. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning. I have a question for Sam regarding scope and reticle selection.
Go ahead.
I am considering buying a Schmidt & Bender PM2. That's but I remember you saying once that people get too involved in brands and that they should open their mind a little bit to other options before they make their selection. So I would like to hear what you think about the direction I'm going for my scope and reticle.
Okay, so let me ask you a question, Mark. Are you a European or a Russian? Do you think in meters and centimeters and millimeters, or do you think in inches, feet, and yards?
Well, I'm an American, but I tend to think of things in meters. That was just my experience for marksmanship while I was in the Army.
Okay. So if I asked you how tall is the tire on your pickup truck, what would your answer be?
Less than 1 meter.
Less than 1 meter. Okay, so you wouldn't say I've got 33-inch tires, or I've got 32-inch tires, or I've got 35-inch tires. You would say less than a meter.
Right. I don't know enough about tires to quote that.
Okay, what about the height of the front door of your house? What would you say?
I would say it's probably about 8 feet.
Okay. See, and so even though you've had Army training, your brain for most objects is probably going to think of something in feet. Now, there's a reason why I'm asking you these questions, because there's a long-standing tradition in the military of using mil dots. And mil dots is based on the metric system. The mil-radian system is angular measurement in the metric system. We also have another angular measurement system, which is in degrees, minutes, and seconds, which is what you see on your GPS. When you look at longitude and latitude, you're seeing degrees, minutes, and seconds, those numbers. And so why am I bringing this up? Because the reality of it is, for most Americans, even Americans that, and I had a U.S. Army sniper join the club at the Freedom Center this past week, and he even thinks in inches for the majority of things. Not everything, but even with his sniper and mil-dot training, he still thinks in inches. So we went over the ranging formula of how do you range in mil-dots and how do you range with minute of angle, or what we call degrees, minutes, and seconds. See, a minute is 1/60th of 1 degree. A second is 1/60th of a minute. And so you have this choice. You can use mil spacing, or you can use minute of angle spacing. I much, much, much prefer minute of angle spacing. And here's why. If I want to range an elk is 36 inches from his belly to his back, or 0.9 of a meter. Now, you put 0.9 of a meter into your mil-dot formula, and you figure out the range of that elk, and use a stopwatch and clock yourself on how long that takes. I want you to go through this exercise personally so you see what an enormous advantage it is to have a minute of angle reticle. Now, if I see that elk, and I put my rifle scope on him, and he's 2 MOA hash marks tall, I know he's 36 inches tall from his belly to his back. I use half the height of the target in inches, which is 18. That becomes my ranging number for elk. So I put my reticle on this elk, and I count 3 hash marks tall from his belly to his back. Half of 36 is 18. 18 divided by 3 is 6. Move the decimal 2 places to the right, he's 600 yards away. I can do that in 1 second. I can passively range with no detectable laser projection. I can passively range just about anything in 1 or 2 seconds with a minute of angle reticle. That's advantage number 1 that minutes has over mils. Advantage number 2 is a mil is 3.44 minutes. That's the conversion factor. So you've got a hold points on your reticle that are 3.44 times larger than minute of angle hold points. So you don't have near as fine a hold points as you learn the trajectory of your weapon system and learn to use your reticle. Okay, Big time advantage number 2. The third thing I'll mention is no matter what reticle you go with, you want to get a second focal plane scope so you can make relative air density adjustments. Now that's a longer discussion than we can have on the radio show on why that's a huge advantage, but you can call me after the show and I'll explain it to you. Now, the fourth thing you want to know about scopes is that the parallax knob has to function properly on the scope. That's critical. It has to pass a square test. Now, we've talked about a square test on the show before, but I'll talk to you about that after the show if you give me a call and want more details. The last thing about scopes you need to know is the erector tube spring has to be strong enough to work. Schmidt and Bender uses a coil spring. Leopold uses a coil spring. These put between 3 and 5 pounds of pressure on the erector tube assembly. Night Force uses a titanium band spring that puts about 25 to 28 pounds of pressure on the erector tube assembly. So if you're shooting a centerfire rifle that has significant recoil, controlling that erector tube equals controlling the aiming point of the weapon system. You want a scope with an enormous, strong erector tube spring so you don't have problems with wandering zero. And so those are the elements that you should consider before you buy a scope. I would personally much prefer you buy a Night Force over a Schmidt and Bender, and I would prefer you get a minute of angle reticle over a mil-dot reticle because you have finer hold points and you can range passively much quicker.
That sounds good. I'm familiar with the concept of ranging through size because I have
Hold that thought, Mark. You got a break. Continue after the break.
It's happening, ladies and gentlemen. We here at RBN are working with Front Sight Firearms Training Institute to bring our audience the best in combat, tactical, and defensive firearms training. Whether you're a private citizen who is new to firearms or you have a concealed weapon permit and want a level of training that surpasses what you've received from your local gun range, Front Sight provides priceless education and skills taught by seasoned law enforcement, military, and private citizen instructors to levels that far exceed law enforcement and military standard. With nearly 1 million responsible citizens trained from every town, city, and state from across the United States, Front Sight has bolstered the Patriot movement to a whole new level. Contact Dan Sutterfield by phone at 573-762-2356 or 573-465-2356 or shoot him an email at domedan, DOMEDAN, at hotmail.com. This is a limited time opportunity. Don't miss it.
All right, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. J.R. Moore here on Monday, the 16th of September. Yes, we're going on a cruise. It'll be an R&R cruise for all you guys and gals, a patriotic, romantic R&R cruise. Leaving Port Canaveral on Saturday, the 9th of February, returning a week later, the 16th. Details at my website at thelibertyband.com. It'll be a lot of fun. Mark, let's continue with your inquiries about these scopes and reticles and so forth, sir.
Yes, I was just telling Sam that I have a Springfield Armory Gen 1 scope. I think it's a variable 4 to 14 power, and it has a ranging reticle and a bubble to determine level at the bottom of the side picture, and I realize how good of a system that is, and so that your information about minute of angle makes a lot of sense to me. It's good information. My rifle is a 30-06, and I wanted to be able to be as accurate as possible out to a range of about 600 meters. And I reason I selected Schmidt and Bender is because my belief was that it was a very good scope for the repeated recoil that's felt, and it would be long-lasting as a result. But I appreciate your comments on it, and I will look a lot closer at Night Force before I make my decision.
Okay, I'm glad you told me the caliber, because that was the next question I was going to ask. Are you a hand loader, Mark?
Yes.
Great. Now, what I would love to see you do with the 30-06 is look at the 178 ELD match made by Hornady, or the 178 ELD-X made by Hornady. And I'd like to see you look at that bullet and look at a powder called Reloader 16. And what you can do is you can use your scope with an MOAR reticle, and you can zero it at 200 yards, and you can use the 2-minute hash mark at 300, and then use the next 2-minute hash mark at 350, the next 2-minute hash mark at 400. You'll find that the reticle synchronizes with the trajectory really, really well.
Very good. Thank you for the information. I'll probably be giving you a call. I'd like to take this weapon system as far as I can, and then go to you to see where I go from there.
Yeah, and Schmidt and Bender, like Leopold and like Minox and like some other companies, they use real high-quality glass. They have good color adjustment, low dispersion glass for their objective lens, and you get a nice, pretty picture through the scopes. But that's not generally when you're putting a scope on a rifle. You generally want to make a first-round hit. That's the high priority thing. And Night Force uses high-quality glass as well, but there's some differences in the internal design that give you a huge advantage when you start shooting past 300 yards.
Very good. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you,
Okay.
Sam. Thank you, John.
All right, have a great week.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate that. Appreciate the call. The call number is 800-313-9443. This Monday show is picking up a lot of listeners here, Sam. You have become very popular, and I found out Saturday that one of my listeners is down there as part of the Freedom Center USA.
One of your biggest fans is one of the owners of the Freedom Center USA, and it is this facility is partly his baby. I thought I told you that. I guess you finally got the chance to meet him in person. I think you've met him before, though.
Well, yeah, I know him. We've met a couple occasions, and he's a very resourceful, very good guy with a lot of great talents to put to use. I'm glad to see he's part of what you're doing there. What's coming up in terms of training that people might be interested here this coming fall between now and say, Thanksgiving?
Well, we're trying to get some CQB class scheduled. I'm still waiting on the instructor to get approval from his military organization that he works for. He's we're trying to bring Bill Hamilton down to do the CQB class, the next close quarters battle class, and he is the director of training at Fort McCoy, the Winter Warfare School up in Wisconsin, and just a world-class instructor. We're trying to bring Bill Hamilton down to do that. We're waiting on him to get approval from the higher-ups before we schedule a weekend. We've got concealed carry class. We've got a schedule with you. We've got another long-range training class this Sunday, but it's full. It's all full. Let's see. We've got an advanced long-range class. If you've taken the basic level class, you can get in that. We'll have that in the probably second week of October. And then the third week of October, we'll have the youth deer hunting class for kids. If you want to bring your kid out and have them learn how to safely shoot a deer out to 300 yards, we'll work with them on that.
All right. Here's our break. Everybody stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
We are back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. J.R. Moore here on Monday. It's Monday, the 26th of September. My website is thelibertyman.com. That's thelibertyman.com. We have a new real estate parcel for sale there. Turnkey hobby farm. Looks like the images need to be squared away. We got the picture of the cave where it shouldn't be, but there's a picture of the house right there. When you click on there, you'll get the details. This is in my zip code. The owner is a contractor, a friend of mine. He does beautiful work. It's ready to go. A hobby farm already set up, complete, ready for people to move in. That saves basically 3 years' work right there. Also, my website, of course, if you've got arthritis pain, what are you waiting for? You need an energy cleaner. You really do need an energy cleaner. Joint pain, back pain, same thing. Are you not sleeping like a small child every night like I do? You also need an energy cleaner. $285 shipping included, American zip codes. Keep in mind the following. I offer from me to you personally a 90-day money-back guarantee. If I didn't stand behind that, I would not be on Republic Broadcasting very long. Mr. Statmiller would not tolerate that. I stand behind this product, and I do stand behind my 90-day money-back guarantee. The mattress pads that go with it, they vary in price depending on what you need. All the details at my website at thelibertyman.com. You can call my toll-free line to place your order for the energy cleaner and mattress pads at 800-592-9543. I say again, 800-592-9543. This is Firearms Monday, visiting with Sam Andrews, the proprietor of Freedom Center USA, down there in beautiful Lebanon, Missouri. And he's got a Facebook page. It's Freedom Center USA. And the telephone number is 417-718-2597. Taking your questions, calls, and comments here at Republic Broadcasting at 800-313-9443. Sam, I was at an NRA convention a few years back. The Night Force display, the people that were there were being treated like rock stars. It was a sight to behold. It really was. And you designed the reticle in one of those scopes yourself, didn't you, sir?
I did. Back in 1994, I sent Jeff Huber, who was the president of Night Force USA at the time, I sent him a reticle design we needed for an expedition with General Chuck Yeager and Jack Wheeler, Dr. Wheeler, and Victor Belenko. We were going to go around the world, and I wanted a specific reticle design for a specific powdered tungsten bullet and a specific cartridge called a 30 Wolf. And Jeff didn't want to make it. And I begged and pleaded with him for 18 months. About once every 3 months I'd call him, and finally I called him. I said, Jeff, I need this reticle. How many do I have to order to make it worth your while? 12? He said, no, you need more than that. And I said, 40, 50, 60? How many do I have to order? And he finally said, I'll make it. Never mind. You don't have to order 50 of them. I'll just make it. And I sent him the MOAR design, and he took the 1-minute hash marks out and said it was too busy, turned it into what he called the R2, and it became the largest selling reticle. It outsold all their other reticles combined for 19 years. And the good news is they finally put the 1-minute hash marks back in the reticle, and now they call it the MOAR. But it's an extremely useful reticle design for long-range hunting, and it's not busy. You're not looking through a screen door like a Horus reticle or a Tremor reticle. It's very useful once you know how to use it properly.
Well, it must be very gratifying. And are you receiving any royalties for your work?
No. Really? Jeff did send me a Night Force 2.5 to 10 power NXS that was digitally anodized. It has a digital desert camo pattern on it, and he sent it to me as a gift to thank me. And he has one, and yeah, I'll say he has one, and I have one. So there's only two of them in the world, and it's a neat little scope, and it's a really interesting thing to look at. But yeah, that was my reward for making him a whole lot of money.
That reminds me, I was on my way back from a speaking engagement with my wife, Dr. Moore, and we stopped. I think we're still pretty far south. We were near an air base. And all these guys and gals were in their Air Force guys and gals wearing their camouflage duty uniform. And I looked at it, and it was very subdued. But I told Mary Ann, my wife, I said, honey, that's tiger stripes. These guys and gals, the Air Force has gone into a tiger stripe camouflage. I was shocked that the Air Force would do such a thing. It was so subdued, you had to look at it really carefully to see that. But the Army and Marines have both been going back and forth. And in my opinion, the woodland pattern was the best camouflage they've ever had. This digital stuff was meant to fool computer technology, not fool the human eye, and I think it was very ineffective myself. Do you have any feedback on your thoughts on camouflage?
Yeah, we look at just about every type of camouflage that comes out, and we test it. We test it with the naked eye and really high-end, expensive optics during the day, and we test it at night with really high-end, fourth-gen white phosphor night vision tubes, and we test it with the thermal scopes that you're now familiar with.
Right.
And just as a side note, I told my wife about 9 o'clock last night, I said, I'll bet I know what John Moore's doing right now. But that's a discussion for another day.
Right.
And what's interesting is what works in one spectrum really well, like woodland during the day to the human eye, doesn't work with night vision. And what works with night vision doesn't work with thermal. And so there's a lot of stuff out there. The best pattern that I've seen for a woodland type environment where you've got greens and tree life that's green, you're not in a sandy desert environment. The best thing that I've seen is a pattern that the Navy SEALs use, which is it is like a digital green and black digital tiger stripe pattern, and it has a special material that thermal does not see well and night vision does not see well. It's really, really interesting, but it's a proprietary thing. It's so closely held. It's compartmented technology, and it's so closely held that the manufacturer that I was in that was making stuff for one of our Navy SEAL teams actually said they have officials here that when our seamstresses cut and trim off material off the items we're making, there's someone there to pick up the scraps. They account for every square centimeter of this stuff, even the scraps.
Well, that's a pretty serious thing they're doing there. I was trying to find some images here on the internet, and I'm not sure I'm seeing it or not. I always like the tiger stripe pattern.
Yeah, you won't see any of that stuff on the internet, but like I said, when you think camouflage, nowadays you have to think in at least 4 different spectrums. You've got to think daylight visible spectrum. You've got to think the night vision spectrum, which is 800 to 9 meters, and then you've got to think the far infrared, which is your thermal spectrum, and then you've got to think radar. So you literally have 4 spectrums now if you want to camouflage from a sophisticated opponent that you need to be aware of.
Well, you need to know your enemy. That's the first step before you start jumping around buying different camouflage. Your enemy is and what their capabilities are, don't you?
Yeah, and I would say that woodland works really good for Bambi during daylight hours. But if you're going up against the Russian military, you're going to have a whole different level. You're going to have to be thinking on 4 levels simultaneously if you want to camouflage yourself. And the other thing you need to know is your optics need camouflage.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
You better cover that big objective lens with something that works, or a broadband laser detector will spot you on a mountainside in a heartbeat, even if you're in a hide with a proper ghillie suit and really camouflaged well. You better learn how to camouflage those objective lenses of your optics, or you're in big trouble.
And what would be a couple of ways a person could do that?
The easiest way to do it is to buy the technology. You have Tenebrex makes a product called Kill Flash, and they make it in a whole bunch of different sizes, so you can put it on your Aimpoint Comp-M, or you can put it in front of your Night Force scope, or you can cover your thermal scope with one of these lenses, and that will prevent your objective lens from causing a glint in the high-end laser detection world.
Well, I've got Kill Flash on some of my scopes, and it's a very effective and not terribly expensive little accessory.
No, it's a very important accessory that doesn't cost a lot of money, and if you're going to get in that game, you better understand how it works.
And that applies to binoculars as well, doesn't it?
Applies to any glass, binoculars, spotting scope, rifle scope, thermal, night vision, anything with an objective lens on it.
What about somebody who's got eyeglasses on?
You're in trouble.
Yeah.
You better have a veil or a screen or something that will minimize the reflection of that, because that is one easy thing to spot.
I've known probably 600 to 800 Green Berets, and the only ones I ever knew that had eyeglasses were West Point graduates who otherwise there would no way they would be in Special Forces with eyeglasses that I've ever seen.
Well, nowadays in Special Forces, it used to be we used to send our SF guys to a guy named Dr. Pepos, who's actually now in Chesterfield, Missouri, and he would do what's called a PARK procedure. But now they have LASIK and they have other techniques that they use. We send our SF guys to these high-end eye doctors, and they make their vision better than 20/20 if they have dense enough retinae in the back of their eyes, and those guys don't need glasses.
Right. My vision typically runs about 2010, 2012, along in there. So I've been very blessed in that regard. The whole topic of optics is something that's not well understood by very many men or women at all, is it?
Well, it isn't, because there's a lot of marketing hype out there. There's a lot of YouTube videos that are almost hysterical in nature, and they're not putting forth the truth, particularly in the long-range shooting arena. And you have to learn how to prioritize what's important. You're trying to build a weapon system that can hit past 300 yards. You have to have control of your rector tube assembly on the inside of your scope. Night Force has a huge advantage in that arena. It used to be if you went to a 1,000-yard 50 cal bench rest competition, you would see 95% of the scopes on the firing line would be Leopold's, and you'd see 5% would be a sampling of other scopes. And by 11 o'clock in the morning, half the people there were changing their scopes because the recoil of the big 50s would break the scopes internally, and they wouldn't hold their point of aim. Nowadays, if you go to a 50 cal 1,000-yard bench rest match, you see 99% of the scopes are Night Force, and 1% is the FNG, or the new guy, right, who doesn't know better, right, and he's changing his scope at 11 o'clock in the morning because it broke.
Right. Well, Night Force has recently come out with when I say recently, and I think this year, about the last 12 months or so, a version of their scope that is more reasonably priced, haven't they?
They've got a scope now called an SHV, And it comes in 5 to 20 power. You can get the MOAR reticle. It comes in second focal plane. And I would caution people, stay away from first focal plane. It really limits what you can do with your scope. Once you get second focal plane and you get some training, you'll never go back to first focal plane. So stay away from first focal plane scopes. That is not what you'll hear on the internet, by the way.
No, it's not.
The truth.
It's not. You'll hear first focal plane as being the best thing since sliced bread.
Yeah, and that's because we give it to our basic Marine Corps hogs. Back when the Marine Corps went from a fixed 10-power scope to a variable power scope, their request for proposal included that it be first focal plane so that the mill spacing couldn't change, so that if the Marine forgot what power setting he was on, he wouldn't screw up his ranging. And it's like, let's dumb it down to the lowest common denominator. That's your first focal plane scope. The professionals in our special operations groups, the guys that really know what they're doing, that have been to advanced sniper training, they all prefer a minute of angle. Most of them prefer a minute of angle over mil dots, and almost all of them prefer a second focal plane scope.
Well, this is valuable information because I was also looking at first focal plane. I'm glad that I've got this information before I spent extra money to get something that is less useful.
Yeah, it's fascinating how people will listen to this diatribe on the internet, and people have to understand, the people that are posting information on YouTube and are posting information on the internet, they're not the people that know. They're the people that like to talk. Guys like me, it's like pulling teeth for me to do a radio show because I really don't like to talk. I'd rather work, and I'd rather train people, and I'd rather build high-end weapon systems. Talking is not my forte, but you have to understand the people on the internet are the people that like to talk. They're not the people that are in the know. The people in the know are not posting on YouTube and posting on the internet.
Well, this is also valuable information, and we are all of us are so grateful that you're taking 2 hours a week to talk to us like this, Sam. It's very, very helpful. We got another break coming up here in less than a minute. What direction you want to go next, sir?
Oh, I think we probably should talk a little more about scopes because Mark came in with an excellent question, and maybe we could get into the scopes a little bit further.
Okay, we'll do that after the break. Everybody stay tuned.
Public Broadcasting Network depends on listener support of our advertisers and of our sponsors. We'd like to especially thank all of you who have taken advantage of our fundraiser with FrontSight Bonus. Those who are now FrontSight members, please train as soon as possible for your sake and for that of our nation. And please consider sharing your training and what you've learned when you arrive home. Republic Broadcasting Network has to stop promoting this fundraiser on air and on the website in just a few days. Dr. Ignatius Piazza, president of FrontSight, made a gracious exception to his no media rule for us at Republic Broadcasting Network. Thank you, Dr. Piazza. And once you've been to FrontSight, feel free to call your favorite host and share your experience on the air. We can continue this fundraiser without media help, but it'll be totally up to the listeners to spread the information. Please call Dan Sutterfield in Missouri at 573-465-2356, 573-465-2356. That's 573-465-2356.
All right, we're back. And we're back. This is Firearms Monday, visiting with Sam Andrews, the proprietor of Freedom Center USA. The Facebook page is Freedom Center USA. The telephone down there in beautiful Lebanon, Missouri is 417-718-2597. And we're talking about optics. You got a question or comment about optics? Give us a call at 800-313-9443. Sam, let's continue with the optics discussion.
Okay, so if we're talking about a scope for a rifle, and we want to shoot past what we call maximum point-blank range, which for most guns is between 200 and 300 yards, we're going to have to buy a scope that has a good parallax knob. We're going to have to buy a scope that has control of the erector tube assembly, a scope that will pass a square test. There's basic threshold, basic level things that we have to be able to do to be effective past 300 yards. And there's two methods that are taught in sniper schools. One is that if let's say you zero your weapon at 300 yards, and you want to shoot a target at 1,000 yards. One way you can do that is to take the elevation turret of your scope and dial it up until the crosshairs are pointed in a place where they need to be for you to hit a 1,000-yard target. We call that dialing dope or dialing up, or we call it a come up. Like you'll hear snipers say, well, what's your come up with that cartridge from 300 yards to 1,000 yards or from 300 meters to 1,000 meters? And the shooters will talk in this language, and they talk about dialing scopes. Well, let me tell you something. That's what we teach snipers to do in the basic classes. They learn how to dial their elevation on their optics. Now, how do we teach the Special Forces guys, the guys that are really experienced, that have been to 3, 4, 5 sniper schools and are at the pinnacle of their trade? They don't dial. They use their reticles. Their reticles have a lens that are etched with a CNC laser. And that laser creates a crosshair that has tiny little marks on it. And those experienced snipers know what those marks mean. And they use those marks to range targets, and they also use those marks to hold elevation for longer range shots. So, for example, if I've got a scope that has quarter-minute clicks on the elevation knob, and I want to come up 20 minutes to take a 1,000-yard shot, I've got to count 80 clicks, or I've got to rotate my turret and be able to see the numbers so that I know when to stop dialing that knob at exactly 80 clicks. Now, we're moving the internals of the scope at that point. The erector tube, which is controlled by a spring and a set of V-blocks, is now moving as I'm dialing that knob. The internals of the scope are pointing in a different direction as I dial the knob. And that's what allows the crosshair to be pointed in a different place. That's one way to do it. That's not the way we teach it because it's slow.
Hold that thought, Sam. We got a break. We'll be right back. All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. J.R. Moore here on Monday, the 16th day. It is the 16th day of September. Prep tip of the day, I want to encourage people to get and read the book titled The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Dr. Joseph Murphy. I typically buy several copies a year and give them to people I think that will make use of them. I say again, the title of the book is The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Dr. Joseph Murphy. This is Firearms Monday. We're taking questions, calls, and comments for my friend Sam Andrews, and we're specializing and focusing on optics this morning. The call number is 800-313-9443. Let's continue, Sam.
Okay, we were talking about an example of making an adjustment from a 300-yard zero to a 1,000-yard shot. And we know that our trajectory requires us to adjust 20-minute of angle up. So we've got to come up on our scope by dialing the knob 20 minutes, or 80 clicks if you have quarter-minute clicks on your scope. So that method is what they teach in basic sniper school, and that method is slow. And that method is less accurate than the method that we teach. So we have these reticles that are laser etched in modern scopes now. So we don't have to dial the knob. We don't have to move the erector tube assembly. We don't have to subject ourselves to all of the issues with designing zero lash mechanisms and getting them to work in various temperature settings and that type of thing. What we can do is we can simply scan our eye down the vertical crosshair until we get to the 20 MOA mark and lift that mark up. And as long as we don't cant the scope and as long as we adjust for yaw, repose, and some other small things and the wind, we can kill a target at 1,000 yards in less than 2 seconds with a 300-yard zero on the main crosshair of our scope. That is a huge advantage in time production of the shot.
Well, you know my terrain here where I am. I typically will sight my rifle in at 25 yards, which puts me about an inch high at 100 yards, and back to zero again, I think at about 300 with a 308. Is that somewhat accurate?
Yeah, I would say probably 250, 260, depending on the ammo you're using, John.
Yeah. So people need to adjust their training and their weapon system to the terrain that they are working in. Now, when I go out west to visit my daughter, you start to realize how massively large this country is. Once you get into Kansas and farther west, there's hardly any trees, it seems like. And you can see forever, can't you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's places in Missouri, power line cuts, cut bean fields. Guys are killing white-tailed deer at 6, 8, 900 yards in these cut fields and power line cuts. I mean, it happens all the time. I mean, you have the ability, depending on the terrain and your elevation, you have the ability to see thousands of yards in a lot of situations.
Right.
And if you know how to use a long-range rifle, it's a huge advantage to have a scope system that works time effectively.
Absolutely. Well, you offer scopes for sale, don't you, including Night Force?
We do. We sell all different brands of scopes. We recommend Night Force for long-range shooting, particularly on larger calibers because of the heavy recoil and the durability of the Night Force scopes.
What qualifies as a heavier caliber?
Anything over a 30-06. When you get into the 300 short mags, the 300 Win mags, the 330 Lapuas, the 50 cals, the 416 Shitax, all of those big guns, they've got a tremendous amount of recoil, but they also have these large brake suppressor systems on them. So the scope gets yanked one way when the gun recoils, and then it gets yanked the other way as the brake begins to take effect and to mitigate the recoil.
That's a double whammy there on those poor little
you get
optics.
A double whammy on a big gun with a big brake and a big heavy scope. And so you have inertia in play, and you've got forces vectored in two different directions in about 5 milliseconds of time. And if you don't have a really durable scope, you're going to have problems. I guarantee it. Absolutely.
Well, this is knowledge that is not common. It is uncommon knowledge. And I know I have neighbors out here that, to them, a scope is a scope. They don't know or care the difference between a $95 Tasco scope and a Night Force. It's just a scope. And that's probably not much different for many men in this country, is it?
Yeah, I would say 90% of your deer hunters think $200 is a high-end, top-notch scope. You know, and here's the thing. If you're deer hunting and you shoot a 3-shot group every year to make sure your zero's good, and then you go deer hunting and you kill a buck and kill a doe, well, you shot 5 rounds that year, and then you clean your gun and you put it away till next year. And the cheaper scopes will last about 4, 5, 6 seasons on a 30-06 size rifle. But if you're training with a rifle the way you should be training with a rifle, you're going to fire a lot more than 5 shots a year, and those cheap scopes are going to break between 2 boxes and 5 boxes of ammo into your training. Those scopes will break. We actually had a scope break on the firing line in our last long-range training class. I had to loan the guy a Night Force to finish the class.
Well, I know that the long-range, the high-powered rifle competitors, they'll put about 5,000 rounds at downrange per year and put in a fresh barrel at the end of each season, won't they?
Yeah, the competitive shooters are going to shoot. The bench rest shooters change barrels at about 1,200 rounds. Some of the tactical PRS shooters, they'll change it about 3,000 rounds. I don't know anybody that's going 5,000 unless they have one of our nitrided barrels. Then they can go 40 or 50,000.
Okay. Well, that nitrided barrel sounds like the way to go, and you end up saving money in the long run, don't you?
You save money in the long run, and you save tremendous amounts of time because the gun cleans up in about a third of the patches and a third of the solvent and a third of the work. And so you'll get your money back on nitriding in the first year you own a gun just cleaning it.
Amazing, amazing. Well, I've seen some of these competitors. They'll have a 6-inch tall pile of patches laying on the floor from going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And that's not my idea of fun.
No, I like to clean a gun properly, but I don't want to take an hour and a half to do it. I want to be done in 15 to 17 minutes and have that gun immaculate. And if you don't have a nitrided barrel, that's a very difficult thing to do. But John, I want to talk about this dialing elevation versus holding on the reticle.
Okay.
Taking a tick mark on the reticle. Because a lot of men, when they come into our long-range training classes, they look at me cross-eyed when I say it's more accurate to hold than it is to dial. And so we got tired of arguing with people, so we created a test to prove it. And I want to share that with you.
Okay.
We take a 4x8 sheet of plywood, and we find a range between 400 and 700 yards, depending on how flat your trajectory is, where you get about 60 inches of bullet drop from 100-yard zero. And so let's say for your rifle it's 500 yards. You get about 65, 68 inches of bullet drop. That's perfect. So you take that 4x8 sheet of plywood, you stand it up 8 feet tall, prop it up so it doesn't move when you shoot it. You take a 1-inch piece of masking tape, and about 8-10 inches from the top, you make a horizontal line across the top of the board. And then you take 2 4-inch pieces of tape. On the left half, you cross that line, so you have a little X. And on the right half, you cross that line, and you have a little X. So you've got 2 plus signs about 10 inches from the top of the board. Now,
right.
You take your 500-yard zero, and you shoot a shot. And then you dial that knob to your 100-yard zero, and you hold on the X just like you did on the first shot, and you shoot a second shot. Then you dial back to your 500-yard zero, and you shoot a third shot. Then you dial back to your 100-yard zero, and you shoot a fourth shot. And you go back and forth dialing between 500 and 100. And what you'll have is, after you shoot 10 shots, you have a 5-shot group right around the X, which was your 500-yard zero. And then about 60, 65 inches below that, on the board, you'll have another 5-shot group where you had your 100-yard zero, but you were holding up on the X.
Right.
Now you go to the right side of the board, and you do the same thing, except you don't dial. You use the reticle, and you put your 500-yard tick mark on the X and shoot a shot, and then you come down to your 100-yard tick mark, and you put that on the X and shoot a shot, and you go back and forth till you got 10 shots, 5 in each group. There's 2 things you're going to notice. The first thing you're going to notice is it took about 1/4 the time to shoot the 2 groups on the right as it did the groups on the left, because you're not dialing the knob and counting clicks.
Right.
The second thing you're going to notice, and this is, I think, even more important, is that you're going to notice that the groups are much smaller on the right.
Really?
Than they
how
are
much
on
smaller?
the left.
How much smaller are we talking about here?
Depending on the scope, they could be 60% smaller, or they could be 300% smaller.
Really?
It's dramatically more accurate to hold on that reticle and not move the internals of the scope, even with the most expensive scopes known to man. So even with the best tracking mechanisms in the world, you can shoot smaller groups by holding your tick marks on the reticle than you can by dialing the knobs.
Amazing. Well, this is very valuable information that will help anybody who pays heed and actually follows up on it. It'll help them a lot, won't it?
I've had scope manufacturers and scope reps argue with me, telling me their tracking mechanism is just as accurate as holding on the reticle. And I pull $1,000 in cash out and put it on the table and said, get your money out and prove it. Not a single one of them has put money up to back up what they're claiming, because they know.
Well, as the old saying goes, put your money where your mouth is, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you believe your tracking mechanism is as good as a laser-etched reticle that's not moving, I'd like to see it. Show me.
This is, I really hope that men and women listening to this will actually follow up and do what we're suggesting. I've been on my other shows, I talk about a 13-month time frame. We don't know what's going to happen in 13 months. We know what could happen in 13 months. The communists, socialists, Muslims, Democrats may want to cause civil disorder. And defending innocent life and property may become a reality, couldn't it?
Well, Trump is supposed to come out with gun control legislation this week, and the Democrats could steal the election in 2020. They could be successful in their attempt to steal the election, and we could be in total chaos in 13 months. So nobody knows. Nobody has a crystal ball. I don't pretend to know. I just see these possibilities developing, and I'm saying grown men should logically look at the more probable scenarios and do a little preparation ahead of time to make sure that they can mitigate any damage that might occur.
Well, defending innocent life is what men should do, and that's what we're talking about here, is defending innocent human life from criminals who want to cause harm. And the more efficiently you can do that, the better chance you've got of prevailing, correct?
I absolutely agree, and I don't think it's a small point to point out that criminals in government kill millions. Criminals on the street might kill 5 to 7 people, but criminals in government, traditionally in the last 100 to 200 years, kill tens of millions of people. And so when you look at the corruption in the FBI, when you look at what the socialists in this country are trying to accomplish right now, understand socialism kills. And these criminals don't have your interest at heart. And when a government treats you as poorly as they do when you're armed to the teeth like Americans are, imagine how they'll treat you if they've disarmed you.
Right. I was reading this morning that there's an estimated 16 million AR-15s in circulation in this country. I did a little mathematical calculation. That's the distance between the East Coast and the West Coast 3 times, 9,000 miles. 16 million AR-15s. I'm serious. You could line them up barrel to buttstock from the East Coast to the West Coast 3 times with 16 million AR-15s.
I'm thinking Beto better get a spare pair of boots if he's going to walk around and take all those AR-15s from people.
He's a joke. He's not going to be the candidate. They're going to.
And John, the estimate of 16 million AR-15s isn't even close to accurate. It's more like 35 million. See, what people can't track are all the guys that are building AR-15s on their own.
Right. Can't be tracked, and that scares the hell out of the government and the socialist, Democrats, communists, Muslims. They are really fearful of men and women fabricating their own firearms, which is easily done these days. There is a CNC machine now being sold for less than $2,000 that will fabricate ordnance steel receivers for M14s, 1911s, AR-15s, and so forth, about the size of a small household aquarium. And that scares the hell out of these people, doesn't it?
Oh, it sure does. These people, they can't get their arms around the fact that Americans aren't giving up any guns. We're done with the assault weapon bans. We're done with all the unconstitutional laws. Nobody's going to comply. And the only way they could possibly win is if they can intimidate people or convince people to turn in their firearms. And you know what? People are too smart these days. They're just not going to do it.
No, they're not. It's not going to happen. Well, let's get back to the topic at hand, which is optics. You need to know the weapon system. You need to know your terrain you're in. Are you in Montana? Are you in the woods of Missouri? You need to know what you're likely to be facing. Is it going to be armed criminals at close range? All these things factor into it, don't they?
Absolutely. You've got to take in the range. So we have 200 yards and in. We'll
Hold
talk
that
about it
thought,
after the break.
Hold that thought. We got a break.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcast. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
J.R. Moore here on Monday, the 16th of September. We're going on a cruise, R&R. I think there might just be some discussions about firearms and various techniques to safeguard life and property on this cruise. I think that's a high likelihood. It could be romantic also. We're going to have Valentine's Day right in the middle of the cruise. It'll be a lot of fun. Check out the details at my website at thelibertyman.com. If you don't have internet access, you'd like our cruise director, Betsy Murphy, to mail you a nice full-color brochure, just give Betsy Murphy a telephone call. Here's your number, 636-530-9502. I say again, 636-530-9502. This is Firearms Monday. Visiting with Sam Andrews, the proprietor of Freedom Center USA. That telephone number down there in beautiful Lebanon, Missouri, is 417-718-2597. Sam, you're not going to encourage people to do a live fire while they're doing Australian rappel off that tower, I hope, are you?
We are going to be teaching people how to safely operate with their firearms in the vertical world.
Okay. I really don't like Australian rappel. Seeing that ground coming up at me is really not fun. And I would not encourage myself live fire while doing any rappelling with a firearm, but maybe with paintball or something like that. But it's your range.
Well, you have to understand, John, that these skills are layered. You know, once your rappel skills and your equipment are at a certain level, then it becomes a fairly simple thing to integrate the firearms and the live fire with the rappelling, whether you're straight up and down or upside down.
Well, getting up, in Australian rappel, I guess you are upside down more or less, but one of the things I learned in Special Forces was you really don't want to get upside down unintentionally in front of your buddies. It's really humiliating.
Well, it can be really dangerous if you don't have a shoulder harness along with your regular rappel harness.
Well, what happens is the descender locks in place, and you're stuck, especially if it's at night. And stuff starts falling off, and it's just humiliating. It didn't happen to me, but I saw it happen to guys. the main thing is keep your legs spread far apart so you don't get sideways like that. And my new climbing rope is on order. I expect to have it towards the end of the week, and I want to thank you for your consultation on that, because it was a great choice, and I've always wanted a 200-foot rope. I've only had 120-foot ropes all these years, but now I can do some things I couldn't do before.
Well, isn't the new rope technology fantastic with the durable sheaths and the stretch that they get on them now, and just the thinner, lighter ropes that are just stronger? I mean, I just love the rope technology that's out there now.
It is, and it's very nice to have these new improvements. Of course, I learned the old way with green line, and green line works. There's nothing wrong with it, but the improved technology with these ropes is just phenomenal.
Well, it's the difference between carrying 80 pounds of rope and carrying 38 pounds of rope. I mean, it's just absolutely wonderful. I don't know if you've ever done any deep cave exploration, but no. Generally when you're doing these long 400, 500 foot rappels, you're somewhere along that way you're going to find sharp rocks.
Oh yes.
And to have these modern ropes with these Technor sheaths, it's basically Kevlar and these high-end fibers that you make ballistic vests out of. And it's much harder for the sharp rocks to cut the sheath rope, and it's just so much safer with these high-tech ropes. You can take a flame to that from a MAP torch, and you can't even melt the sheath on this thing. I mean, it's just,
really?
The modern technology is just phenomenal.
Well, spelunking was never a hobby of mine. My wife, Dr. Moore, she was a spelunker, despite having really serious problems with being in close confines, but she did it anyway. Of course, my question would be, how do you get back up out of there? Do you have to use an ascender to go 400 feet straight up? That would be fun.
Well, the technique is called jumaring, but there's several ways you can do it. You can do it with prusik knots and the loops for your feet and a carabiner, or you can do it with a modern ascender, and you have a little backup device on your chest rig that holds you a certain distance from the rope, and you can just work your way up the rope just like a ladder, just one step at a time.
I know. I've done a lot of that. I'll use the ascenders over prusik knots any day of the week, and we're losing people here. They don't have a clue what we're talking about. This is rock climbing and rappelling 101, ladies and gentlemen. It's a lot of fun, and it doesn't cost much, and it is a lot of fun. Let's get back to optics. That's what people want to hear about this morning.
So let's talk about the range applications that are out there. So if you're 100 yards and in, a 4 MOA red dot up to an 8 MOA red dot if you're indoors is the most effective thing. If you want to go out to 200 yards, you want to keep the red dot size down under 3 minutes.
All right. Hold that thought. We got a break. We'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
It's happening, ladies and gentlemen. We here at RBN are working with Front Sight Firearms Training Institute to bring our audience the best in combat, tactical, and defensive firearms training. Whether you're a private citizen who is new to firearms, or you have a concealed weapon permit and want a level of training that surpasses what you've received from your local gun range, Front Sight provides priceless education and skills taught by seasoned law enforcement, military, and private citizen instructors to levels that far exceed law enforcement and and military standard. With nearly 1 million responsible citizens trained from every town, city, and state from across the United States, Front Sight has bolstered the Patriot movement to a whole new level. Contact Dan Sutterfield by phone at 573-762-2356 or 573-465-2356 or shoot him an email at domedan, DOMEDAN, at hotmail.com. This is a limited time opportunity. Don't miss it.
All right, we are back. Ladies and gentlemen, we're back. J.R. Moore here on Monday, the 16th of September. My website is thelibertyman.com. We have a project that keeps moving forward. We're into this the third year. Men and women who listen to my show, paying careful attention when they watch movies and TV shows, looking for images of continents with different coastlines, new coastlines. It's a long list. We're up to about 3 dozen or so of these movies and TV shows, including The Hunger Games, including the TV show NCIS. How many tens of millions of people watch that? If you find one yourself, get that screen capture to me. You get your choice of any of my 6 DVDs as a thank you. It's a lot of fun, and we need to keep that moving forward. Also, my website, of course, are energy cleaners. If you're tired of being tired, you want a great night's sleep every night like I get yourself an energy cleaner. You're healing from surgery, you have issues with arthritis, pain issues, you need an energy cleaner. Details at my website at thelibertyman.com. Be sure and check out the factory-made fitted mattress pads. You folks that are waiting for delivery, I'm taking delivery today of the mattress pads. I'll be reconfiguring them. I'll probably be up late tonight reconfiguring mattress pads and hopefully get everything shipped out tomorrow. You folks have been waiting a week or more. I will hope to. My goal is to get everything shipped out tomorrow. Toll-free hour line 24 hours a day is 800-592-9543. I say again, 800-592-9543. Firearms Monday, visiting with Sam Andrews, the proprietor of Freedom Center USA, where Sam and his wife are living the dream, the American dream, doing what they love down there at Freedom Center USA. The telephone number down there is 417-718-2597. Would it be a fair statement, Sam, to say that you and your wife are living the dream down there in Lebanon, Missouri?
Oh, absolutely. We love it down here. It's a beautiful place to live. We've got rivers and trout streams. We're within half an hour to an hour of 3 different huge lakes, Norfolk, Bull Shoals, Lake of the Ozarks. It's just a gorgeous place to live. We've got the cleanest aquifer in the world right underneath us. You drill a well here and you get water that's been filtered through 400 feet of limestone. We've got good soil for growing, great weather. It's just a fantastic place to live.
It is. And I encourage people to check it out. The Facebook page is Freedom Center USA. Let's continue, sir.
We were talking about the effective range of various weapon sights, matching your weapon sight to the range you're going to use that weapon at. So for 100 yards and in, we can use the red dot sights that have the larger dots on them that are easy and quick to see. 4 MOA to 8 MOA is good for indoors, and 8 MOA is probably better for indoors. 4 MOA is probably better out to 100 yards. And if you want to go past 100 yards with your red dot sight, you're going to want to have a red dot sight that's 3 MOA or 2 MOA. They subtend in your view. And you may want to get a tripler that you can throw in front of that for past 100 yards. That'll help the accuracy quite a bit. When you get past 200 yards, you're now in the realm of optics. A 1 to 4 power scope is good out to 300 yards. A 2 to 10 power scope or a 2 to 8 power scope or a 1.5 to 8 power scope is really effective out to 400 yards. When you get past 400 yards, now you're going to want to have at least a 10 power, preferably a 14 to 16 power scope. When you get past 600 yards, you're going to want to have something that's 20 to 32 power, depending on what you're doing and what type of weapon system.
32 power. I was not personally aware that there was such a thing as a 32 power rifle scope till just this moment.
Oh, well, the Night Force and the other companies, they make bench rest competition scopes for 1,000-yard group shooting that are 50 to 60 pounds.
Really? Really? Well,
yeah, now that's
bench
a
rest
dedicated scope for one
highly
competition, one range. Yeah.
It's highly specialized. Highly specialized. I'm not sure what practical use there would be for that in the field, but it is highly special. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no practical use for the bench rest scopes. They have super fine hair crosshairs, so you can get really precise hold points, and 50 power or more. The bench rest shooters have been using those for years. But for a long-range tactical application, for long-range hunting application, generally, you're not going to need more than 22 to 25 power. Even I've killed mule deer does at 2,600 yards with a 22 power Night Force with an MOAR reticle. So, I mean, 22 power is plenty good enough to get the job done past 2,000 yards.
Which is more than a mile, much more than a mile.
Yeah, a mile's 1,760 yards. So you know, you're almost half a mile past a mile. You're past a mile and 3/8 at that range.
Amazing, absolutely amazing. Well, before people start making expensive purchases of optics, they need to be talking to you, don't they, sir?
Well, we can save you some money, and we can save you a lot of heartache. If you believe the marketing people and what you read on the internet, you're going to spend a lot of money on a scope, and you're going to be really disappointed. We test everything here at the Freedom Center, and I have students come in with new scope designs all the time, and we see what works and we see what fails. And we're happy to share that knowledge with you, so you buy once and you're happy and you have a reliable system that will work for you, and you have a scope that has a lifetime warranty.
You know, a lifetime warranty backed up by a major manufacturer, that's a big deal, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, especially when you look at the dollar amount that these modern scopes are at. I mean, the price points, a lot of guys will spend more on their scope than they do on their rifle because the scope is that important.
Well, I can see where that could easily happen. You can get a fairly decent rifle for anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500, can't you?
Yeah, and you know, when I was a young boy, everybody hunted deer with the Winchester Model 94, the lever action. And that gun was on Central Hardware's wall for $107. That same exact Winchester now is $1,200. Well,
a lot of these guys in my neighborhood, they got those same 94 30-30 lever actions. There's still lots of them out here.
Yep, it's a very popular gun for the traditional deer hunter. You can buy a Savage Axis bolt gun that's very effective to 400 yards now for under $400.
Really? Okay.
I mean, there are options out there. No matter what your budget is, there's something out there that's going to work reasonably well for what you're trying to do. Now, if you want to shoot past 800 yards and you want to shoot small groups, you're not going to do it effectively with a $400 gun. There's other options. You're going to have to spend a little more money. But there are guns, like I think we had 3 of them in our last long-range training class, some 260 Remingtons that are around $1,200 at price point without the scope. And we had guys shooting 6-7-inch groups of those at 1,000 yards with good ammo.
Amazing. I had a question over the weekend that came up from 3 most accurate factory 308 loads.
From the factory, the most accurate load we've ever tested in 308 is the 155 grain CNR ammunition manufactured by Lapua. The second most accurate 308 load that we've tested is the 178 ELD match manufactured by Hornady. And the third most accurate load is the 175. It's basically a sniper round made by Black Hills.
Okay. Well, that's some good information there.
But the 55 Lapua round is supersonic, past 1,000 yards out of most 308s, and it is just extraordinary. It seems to shoot well in everything we put it in.
So it's a fairly light bullet. I'm kind of surprised that a bullet that light would do that well.
Well, Lapua Sinar has a secant ogive and a really high BC, and your starting velocity is about 2,960 feet a second, where if you compare that to a 175 Federal Gold Medal round, which is the GM02, the Gold Medal 02, not the 168, but the 175, it's starting life around 2580 versus 2960. So there's almost 400 feet per second difference in the muzzle velocity. And the 155 bullet has almost the same BC as the 175 Sierra, so the drag coefficients are very similar. And so you see the 155 outperform the 175 at long range.
Well, that's good information for people to know. Also, that the 308 is still one of the most popular calibers out there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a very good caliber. If you could only have one rifle, that certainly would be an excellent, excellent choice, because you have so many options from a bullet standpoint. You have the 110 VMAXs all the way up to like a 208 ELD match. And so, and you have 100 choices in between. You have a lot of flexibility with the 308 because of the vast bullet selection available.
That's because of the manufacturers are meeting the demand. There's such a vast demand that the manufacturers are just stepping up to the plate, aren't they?
Yeah, and the 308 shoots the same diameter bullet as the 30-06, same diameter bullet as the 300 Windbag, same diameter bullet as the 300 Short Mag, the 300 Ultra Mag, the 300 Savage. I mean, they've been making 308 bullets for so long that you literally have hundreds to choose from for whatever application you need. So it's just a great round from a flexibility standpoint. And you can hunt anything in North America other than a grizzly bear very effectively with a 308.
Even the heaviest bullet you can put in a 308, you wouldn't want to use that against a grizzly?
Well, you could kill a grizzly with a 308. They kill polar bears with 223s, but they walk up within 20 yards of them and head shoot them. That's how the Eskimos kill polar bears. But if you're talking about breaking a front shoulder or something like that, the 308 energy level, I would prefer to have something quite a bit stronger for a grizzly bear. And keep in mind, when I was 10 years old, I saw my grandfather and a guide pump rounds from a 300 Win Mag and a 7mm Remington mag into a charging grizzly bear, and they each put 4 rounds in this thing, and it stopped about 15 feet from them after being shot 8 times with a magnum-level round. Grizzly bears can be really hard to stop if they're males, if they're large, and if they're really aggressive.
That would really get the Parker factor up there, being a part of that situation.
Yeah, my grandfather had shot a moose right at dusk the night before up in Canada, and I was hunting with him, and he shot this moose, and he said, well, we're going to leave it lay. It's going to be about 5 below zero tonight. We'll just have the guide bring his track hoe out and pick this thing up and take it back, and we'll clean it in the morning. And when we got there with the track hoe, the moose was gone and had been drug up the slope of a mountain and pulled into this shelf area in a bowl out of the wind. And this grizzly bear had eaten the kidneys and the liver out of this moose and was laying there asleep, just as fat as he could be. I mean, laying on the ground, his rib cage was 4 feet tall.
Oh, no.
And this was a massive bear, about 10.5 feet from nose to tail.
Whoa.
They shot this thing in its sleep. It woke up and charged, and they continued shooting. And I was about ready to jump into a tree when this thing finally, his chin hit the dirt, and it skidded to a stop.
Whew, scary.
A grizzly bear is not the same animal as a black bear. I've seen a guy kill a large black bear with a .243 in one shot. This grizzly bear was shot 8 times with Magnum rounds in the chest and was still running.
Powerful animal. Powerful animal.
Yeah, they're a different animal. Not all bears are created equal.
Absolutely. Well, the brown bear is even larger than grizzly, but I guess they're not as aggressive.
Well, it's the same species. It's just you find the brown bears on the coast, and people call them grizzlies. But genetically, they're very similar. The reason why people think of brown bears as being large, even though they're the same species, is because they're feeding on fish and salmon, and they've got a diet that those things can grow to enormous sizes.
Right, right. How effective, just my personally curious, a 12 gauge with slugs at stopping a large dangerous animal?
Yeah, 12 gauge with a slug is a very, very effective round. You know, you've got a large bore diameter, you've got a lot of mass. When I guide for my buddy out in Utah, I carry a 308, and I'm in grizzly country. But I've got a very specialized bullet, and I've got 25 rounds in the mag. And if somebody charges one of those clients, I'm going to put 15 rounds in that bear before you can blink an eye. You know, but I don't recommend the average guy going out and hunting a grizzly bear with a 308.
Aren't there some regulations that prohibit a large capacity magazine on a hunt like that?
Well, I'm not hunting the bear, I'm guiding.
Oh, okay. So you got a free pass then. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not hunting in that situation. I'm protecting a hunter.
Okay. All right. I'll go with that. I hope the game warden does so.
Well, the day a game warden wants to try and take a rifle off me, I welcome him to try. That's pretty damn funny.
That would not be wise. Well, let's get back to optics here. We got a break coming up in a minute. There's a lot to this, and it may be confusing for people, couldn't it?
Yeah, it is. And, you know, if you stick with an Aimpoint Comp M or an EOTech, like an SP3-2, in the red dot arena, you'll be in great shape. If you stick with the Night Forces and the power that you need them for, you'll be in great shape. It'll be hard to make a mistake.
Well, that's good to know. That's good to know. Some basic stuff that if you follow those protocols, you're going to be in good shape.
Yeah, I had one of your clients order a thermal sight off of me, and it was a gal, and I was a little bit concerned, you know, that this woman was ordering this expensive thermal sight, and I asked her what type of weapon system she was going to put it on, and she said, well, I have a precision 308 with a Night Force, I'm just going to mount it on that. And
she knew
that
her
kind
stuff,
of relieves
didn't she?
my concern. Yeah, she's pretty sharp.
We'll be right back. All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Sam, we got one last caller here. We're almost out of time. Kyle in Montana. Make it quick, Kyle.
Good morning, John. I'm sorry to call this late. I tried to call earlier, but nobody picked up the phone. Anyway, I got a quick question for you, Sam. What is your opinion of the Super Sniper brand of scopes? Because I have that on a 300 Winchester, and it has performed excellent so far. But I haven't put more than maybe, I don't know, 40 or 50 rounds, maybe 80 rounds through it.
Do you have the fixed 10 power version of the Super Sniper?
Yes.
Yeah, I've heard guys say that they actually hold up fairly well on a 300 Win Mag. You know, we haven't ever had one fail, but I know of customers that have had problems with them on their 300 Ultra Mag. So you may be on the threshold level of what it will withstand from a recoil standpoint. We haven't had problems with them like we have Leopold and Vortex and Hawk scopes. We've had those fail on a consistent basis, but we haven't seen any consistent problems with that particular scope. Let let me know after you got 500 rounds on it. I'd be interested to see what happened.
Sure. You know, and one quick bear story, John. I had a friend of mine who was guiding for a guy and was riding horses around, and how quick they are, these bears. He come around a very sharp corner, and there was a big boar grizzly on a moose kill. And he said, this is how fast this happened. The bear took 3 jumps out because they startled him. He was about 30 yards away, took 3 jumps out and 2 back. And he said, that was enough time for me to reach my hand over and grab the top of my rifle in the scabbard. That's how fast that happened.
Amazing.
Yep.
Amazing.
Yep. So they're extremely quick.
I watched a large black bear in Utah run a moose down from behind at 35, 40 miles an hour and jump on its neck and bite it and take it to the ground. Bears are incredibly fast.
Amazing.
Agreed.
Absolutely amazing. Kyle, thank you for the call, sir. We appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Yeah, I would give a bear a good chance against Secretariat for the first 100 meters.
Really? Really?
Oh, they're unbelievable. A large grizzly bear is so fast, it belies, you just can't believe it. You have to see it with your own eyes.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. And that scope that Kyle was talking about, the Super Sniper?
Yes, it's a fixed 10-power scope. It's about a 20-year-old design. The glass in it's pretty mediocre. The tracking mechanism is pretty mediocre. I wouldn't recommend it simply because the variable power scopes are so good now, but hopefully it'll hold up for him for at least another 200-300 rounds.
Well, good. Good. That would be great. Well, if you need a professional advice, just give Sam a call down there in Freedom Center, USA at 417-718-2597. So my female listener surprised you at her level of expertise, didn't she?
Oh yeah, she was sharp, and I was talking to her on the phone. The first 30 seconds, I was like, "This gal's had training. She's got good weapons. She's got quality optics. I don't have to worry about her."
Well, they're out there. There are very knowledgeable women who have great weapons and great training, and they know how to use them, don't they?
Well, Terry, whose father was a salmon fishing guide in Alaska, she grew up in Alaska. She headed up the sniper training program for the Department of Energy for years. And she is a highly skilled sniper. And she married a guy named Neil Terry, who was a Albuquerque SWAT sniper. And her first name is Terry. And so when she married Neil Terry, her name became Terry Terry.
That would be confusing.
And Terry can outshoot about 89% of the men out there.
Oh, I bet she can. Yeah. Most men are not nearly as good at shots as they think they are they?
Well, if your grandfather or uncle trained you how to shoot, you're probably in a lot of trouble unless he was a really skilled sniper.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Absolutely. Well, we're pretty much out of time here. Sam, I want to thank you for your time and look forward to having you back next Monday, sir.
John, thanks for having me. Have a great week and let freedom ring, brother.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Okay. Tomorrow we will have my friend Steve Ben Noon with us. We'll be talking about geopolitical matters first hour. Second hour we'll be talking about health-related matters. And Wednesday we'll have Professor McCanney first hour, talking about all kinds of different things as we normally do. And then Jeff Nyquist, hour 2, talking about the international communist conspiracy, which is what we're facing. Quite frankly, that is what we're facing. And usual lineup. Looking forward to a great week here with all of you. Last week of hot summer here, I hope, here in south central Missouri. And looking forward to